we have Eric and Candace with us, and just as a quick intro for format, what we're going to do today is they're going to be chatting with us for about 30 minutes. And then what we wanted to do is actually do some breakout rooms per region so we could meet some people within either our city, our province. I've been meeting people in Edmonton recently that have been to BSSM, and I had no idea. And they're, they live 20 minutes away. And so we just wanted to facilitate that connect, and then even spend some time praying for each other, praying for Canada, praying for our region. And so that's what we'll do for the last little bit, and then kind of come together and maybe pray a bit and just mention some logistical things with the alumni department. So Eric and Candace, welcome. Are you guys muted, or you're unmuted now?
I think we're all good.
We are.
Awesome.
Hello, everyone.
Cool.
Good to see you.
So fun to be with our Canadian friends. Greetings from sunny Reading. I know you're saying it's warm there. We're getting warm here as well. And yeah, and we're starting to reopen a little bit. It's a good season. And it's been, quite a bit for all of us to navigate. You guys, us, everywhere around the world. So it's been fun. It's kind of fun just to see things changing. I don't know how it is where you're at, but it's good stuff.
Yeah. Right on. So I had everyone kind of send in some questions, and so I've kind of grouped them together. So maybe I can throw those out to you guys, and you can answer those. Would that work?
Yeah, let's go.
Awesome.
I have a question though for the Canadian.
Yes.
As part of my attempt to grow in my worldview of Canadians. So, is it true that if you drive 6 hours, that's not considered a long drive? Is that true?
Type it in the comments.
Because I'm told that like driving 6, 8, 9 hours, it's like for us to be like driving 2 hours. And that is so true.
Yeah.
Because you said, Chris, you said you guys are so spread out. And that's the fascinating thing about Canadians. I remember I've gone to Canada a number of times, and one of my former students drove like 9 hours. He's like, "Oh, that's nothing." I'm like, "You're crazy." Anything over 2 hours, I'm on a plane. Forget driving.
Well, one of the things I talked to the alumni department about is, like, for me in Edmonton, it's faster for me to drive to Reading than it is for me to like drive to Toronto. Like, it's that spread out. I went to a motorcycle trip to the Arctic Circle last year, and I could have gone to Cabo San Lucas in the same amount of time.
Wow. Oh gosh.
So fascinating. So thank you for confirming or strengthening my worldview of Canadians.
Yeah, right on. Well, the first question we had for you guys is, what's been hard for you in this season with coronavirus and everything, both personally and as a church?
I mean, there's been a lot of things. We could probably go in a lot of different directions. For us as leaders, I would say there's been so many decisions that we've had to make. And with all the different restrictions, and even what way the shelter in took place, we'd be like, okay, reduction down to 250, wait, reduction down to 150. We're just pivoting like day after day. And we have a church of 1,000 people and have different businesses and schools and stuff. So it was a lot to figure out. And then I'm now,
1,000 people?
Sorry, 11,000 people. And now we're kind of in the opposite, where we're starting to talk reopening, and they just approved, you can have churches up to 100, gatherings of 100. And so we're getting ready to launch all these home church, like small group stuff, and invitation for people to to come into the service of under 100 people while we're filming. So it's just a lot of decisions. And then realizing for leading people, there's such a scope of how people feel and are responding to the virus in their faith, where some people are like, rebel, the government's trying to take over everything, you're disobeying God by shutting, and they feel very strongly. And then the other people are like, why aren't you wearing masks? Like, you're so inconsiderate. And these are all in our church. These are all in our leadership. So like, how do you be all things to all people? And then what's our role as leaders, and how do you pastor that? So there's been quite a diversity even amongst our leadership team. So really just praying for wisdom and grace, and knowing that we can all feel differently, and I can still be respectful to you, and that we can still have respectful conversations. And so that's been some of the challenges for me.
Yeah, I think some of the hardest part is how inconvenient this whole thing is. That is the part that it's just like you don't plan for this, you know, and so super inconvenient, and then just the inconsistency of what's true, and I mean, there's just so many dynamics. So, but that's leadership. I mean, that is, I think the beautiful side, not the beautiful side, the other side of the conversation is everyone going through the same thing to some degree. We're maybe not experiencing it the same, but everyone's in the same storm. And I think, when this thing first hit, at least when America started shutting down March 12th, March 15th, Banning and I were talking, and Banning said, this is the first time in my adult ministry life I have no one to call and ask, hey, what did you do when you went through this? And I thought that's a really good observation. So I think the challenging part, but it was also, I don't even have the right word. Exciting is definitely not the right word, but it made it quite adventurous. And, and you don't have a lot of time to seek the Lord in the midst of it, because you're having to make decisions now. So you're just trusting that you're hearing the Lord, and you're trusting you're making a good decision. And when there's so many politics, religions, beliefs, the diversity, you're just like, man, I hope I'm making great decisions. We will find out, that for sure. And so we met with some alumni in Europe last week. Yeah, the European alumni called last week, and they asked a question. I said, Paul asked a question, and my answer was, I'm just glad I put a lot of seeds in the soil before this season. I'm glad that I wasn't empty, if you will, before this season hit. And I think that's just a really good reminder that the pressure, we are able to handle the pressure because of what we did before the season hit. And that I'm grateful for. Anyway, so.
That's awesome. And I think that's comforting in one sense to know that, because we have people that are, I'm sure, leading in all different spheres, to know that, hey, guess what? Eric and Candace are struggling with some of the same things we struggle with too, and figuring out how do you lead during this time.
We are human, just so you know.
Of course. There's not a Superman cape under there or something?
In my heart.
Yeah. I'm curious if you could speak to that just a little bit, what you said, what it means to you putting those seeds in the ground.
Yeah, I mean, I think of several dimensions when I say that statement. One is my personal private time with God, just my devotion, my worship, not corporate, but the personal, and just keeping that strong and solid. I think on the leadership stuff, I think there's two ways to grow as a leader. One is experiential, and the other is intentional. And I think sometimes too many leaders let experience grow their leadership. And I think we need to put the same energy into intentionally growing our leadership. And so I'm just grateful that, we, as you can imagine, leading this house and being a part of the stuff we're involved in, we have experiences 24/7 that are growing us as leaders, challenging us as leaders. And it would be easy for me to just rest on that, or both of us to rest on that. But for 20 years now, I've intentionally challenged myself to grow the leader. And I've done numerous things over the years. So I think those are probably the two dimensions I'm speaking to right now, specifically.
Yeah, awesome. That's awesome. Thank you. Or another question, how have you been engaging God differently during this time?
Well, a lot at home. Which actually is the beauty of, our relationship with God is a lot of things. Obviously it's always very personal because that's who he is. At the same time, we do a lot of corporate worship, corporate pursuing God, corporate time in his presence. And it has been a lot more at home individual. And I think that's part of what God is, he's going to use it all. But I see him strengthening us as the church and establishing us as we all pursue him individually, and yet gathered in a sense, but a lot of home stuff right now, and I see it as a blessing. For me, a lot of it has been being more quiet before God. You know, there's so much stuff, so much opinion, and I have a lot of opinion and thoughts, and I think that's part of my gifting is like I can see things, and then I'm good at making steps on how to get there. And for me, sometimes one of the best things is just shut it all down and just be quiet and be in his presence and let him just change me and let him add what he wants instead of me being pursuant. Because I would be like, when Eric's talking about intentionality, I'm like on the intentional side. I'm a driver. I'm going to go do this. And I felt like it's been a little bit of a shift of just actually be quiet before God and let him do what he wants to do in me. So that's been a little bit of what my journeys look like.
Yeah, I think doing the same things I did before, nothing changed on that level. I think what made it have to be more diligent about is, you know, because the line between work and home got erased. And so, you know, the home life became work life and the work life became home life. And so I think when that line got erased with, you know, the shutdown orders, you had to work harder to protect those things that you did before the season as far as spending time with God. Because, you know, the commute was from the bedroom to the kitchen to our office. That was our daily commute. And so it's really easy to just get right into work mode or not disconnect from work. And so I think for me, nothing's changed as far as what I do, but being more disciplined and protective over it is probably something that for me personally, I go, no, I have to do these things. Although 15 feet away is a mound of emails and phone calls and decisions that need to be made. You know what I mean? So I think it's just getting more resolved to protect what's important.
Susie has a good question. What are some of the ways you have intentionally grown your leadership? I would say through books, through podcasts, through access to leaders, asking questions whenever you're around leaders, observing what they do. I love to watch people and just see what are the conversations they're having and what are the first questions they ask when they get faced with a challenge. So we have the privilege to get to be around a lot of seasoned leaders in their 60s. And I just love to watch, and then asking questions, and even getting either meeting with someone, having a coach, letting them ask you questions as well. So all of those things are ways that we can grow ourselves.
Yeah, I've had a leadership coach for about 20 years now. And so that's something that's been really, I didn't know I needed in the early years, but it's become a normal for me just to have a leadership coach that I meet with anywhere from 1 to probably at the most 5 times a year. And it's purely about leadership. And they use a lot of different tools to help me grow, etc. So that's been along with what Candace said.
That's awesome. And I'm glad Susie asked that question because Susie is an incredible coach. I know Susie. So I'll personally plug Susie as a coach. There. I'm curious because you guys talk to a lot of different alumni groups, I'm assuming, right? You mentioned you were on with Europe last week, and I'm sure that there's other alumni that you talk to all sorts of different times. A lot of people had questions about stuff like, how have you seen alumni succeed after leaving Bethel? And especially along the lines of how do you effectively bring like revival culture to your area or to your church, especially when, you know, they're not fans of Bethel or of the Johnson family or something like that, right? How do you effectively lead and bring that to your area?
To know us is to love us. They just don't know.
Exactly.
Like, how could you not like us? It's impossible.
Just know, like, I've never felt like it was my job to defend Bethel. Even just as a citizen of Reading, as a person, even when I'm out in the community, that is nothing that I feel responsibility for. And how do you root yourself somewhere else and even gain favor? It's just being real, being loving, being who you are. I don't need to have this Bethel banner over me all the time. I can see people for who they are, be myself. And a lot of times they're surprised when they find out you go to Bethel, and then I don't even tell them I'm actually the pastor of Bethel. But it's just being kind of building the wall that's in front of you. It's actually walking through the door that God's put in front of you and not feeling like I need to carry this other banner to make sure everybody knows or is beaten down by. You don't say anything against Bethel. So for all of us, I think we all get the opportunity to navigate that. So working with other churches or people who have really strong beliefs about Bethel, I'm like, well, luckily we're just people, so we can interact and we can start here, and I get to steward my heart and I can give you what I have. What do you need, or what can I do? And sometimes it looks like, you know, you have a need here. I'm working hard. I actually work for you, or I'm a part of your church. What's your vision? What do you have need? Well, I get the opportunity to serve that, because that's what love looks like right now. So it's always just stewarding your heart and then stewarding what God has put before us. And when we're in other churches or other places and it's not Bethel, I can't expect them to look like Bethel. I can't expect them to do worship like Bethel, and I can't hold it against them and judge them because they're not Bethel. And so I need to give people grace, and other churches and leaders grace to be them. You don't preach like Bill. Well, thank God, because you're not Bill. You know, like giving people grace to be them. And actually, can I enjoy people that are not Bethel? That would be like the opportunity that we all get. And it's a beautiful thing, because God doesn't want to, like, he gave us there's a grace on our life and a calling on our life. And we need to be able to step into that and then give people the freedom to do that as well and honor them for who they are. Like, you're not Bethel, but you're you and you're beautiful. And I'm going to support you. I'm going to champion you and not hold it against the difference against you. So I think that makes us easier to be around too, when we can let that go and just enjoy where God has placed us, and beyond enjoying it, actually support it and champion it. And I think that's where our favor will grow as well, is when people can feel our heart and then feel our strength as well and who we are.
Yeah, there's no magic phrase to answer that question. Your question is so multi-layered as far as, you know, how to thrive, how to succeed, and then what happens when you go back to a place that, you know, doesn't value what you guys carry or what you've learned. I mean, it's so multi-layered. So I'll just give I'll give a broad stroke. We try to tell people, not for the sake of prophesying negativity, but for the sake of get perspective. I think there is a pressure that a lot of alumni feel. They may not know it, but some may be aware of it. I think some feel it and don't recognize it till later. But there's this pressure to have immediate success right after you graduate. And there's this pressure like, this isn't working. And so then begins the cycle of thoughts of, you know, am I failing? Did I miss it? Do I not have the anointing? I mean, there's just a myriad of thoughts. And so I think perspective is really helpful. And this is my observation. This is not 100% accurate, but my observation, it takes about 2 or 3 years to acclimate when you get back from school. Some do it quicker, and some are actually quite a bit longer. And we're often shocked or surprised by that. And we need to not be. And again, I'm not saying that's gonna happen. I'm just saying this is just facts. I've seen it. I've observed it for a long time now. And I think there's a very human aspect to that we need to respect and give acknowledgement to. And that is, when you experience 1, 2, or 3 years of BSSM, a hyper intense chamber of just everything, you guys know what I'm talking about. I mean, it just blew your mind, remodeled your life, just rearranged everything. And then to go back into quote unquote normal life, for there not to be a transition, then it would reveal that you didn't experience anything at BSSM. But the fact that that is a transition reveals that, wow, I just had a very unique God experience, that 12 months, 24 months, or 36 months. So if it's hard to transition, another way I would encourage you to look at it is, wow, I'm a different person. And that's a positive thing. So give yourself some grace. Give yourself a lot of grace to acclimate back into whatever normal life looks like. Now, if you're dealing with an environment that does not value what you carry, what you've learned, if you go back into that, then the questions are going to be, God, is this where I'm supposed to be? And you need to get past the emotion that you're feeling. You need to get past the loops in your mind that you're having. You need to get to the word, what's the voice of God in this situation? And if he is saying, this is where I want you, then your next question, God, I need grace. I need your grace to be here. Give me the wisdom and the grace to be here. Because oftentimes we stay somewhere we're not supposed to stay, or we bail when we're supposed to stay. But if you can get clarity on this is where I'm supposed to be, then I would encourage you, ask for the grace and the wisdom of how to thrive there. And it's going to look very different. Like the things that worked here are probably not going to work there. And that's okay. And so I think the challenge that you have as alumni and as leaders is you have to take everything you learned here and almost reinvent it in a completely different context. And that's a lot of work. But guess what? We have seen it so many times where people stick to it and the fruit is endless. And there are nations around the world, there are cities around the world with alumni. And the other thing we've noticed, a common factor too, is if you don't do it alone. If you do it with other alumni where you can burn together, even if you don't live in the same city, I mean, you got 8 hours of like living, that's your next door neighbor, then shoot, just start driving a lot. I don't know. But in all seriousness, don't do it alone. Don't try to figure it out on your own. Stay connected. And that's the beauty of this group right here. So those are our thoughts.
Yeah, that's really good. I can speak from my experience that, yeah, it took a lot of time to reacclimate and figure out what life looks like back here after being in that incredible environment for 3 years. Well, I'm curious, I guess you guys only have a couple minutes left. Is there anything, rather than, I can ask another question, but is there anything that's on your hearts for us to share that it's like, you know what, as Canadians, this would be really good for you guys to know, or as alumni, this would be really good for you guys to know?
Yeah, I think, I'm sure all of you had the process of thought that, when the pandemic hit, shutdowns happened, the words reset was really popular, pivoting was really popular, all these words. And I think we all assessed, we all reflected, and we also all probably got some sense of like, wow, there are some things I lost along the way. And this pandemic kind of helped me find some things that I maybe forgot to do or let go of, all those things. And then the question that we've been asking our teams is, okay, what are those things that we got, learned, or God showed us in this season that we know we have to take into the next season? And I'll just say, we all have some pretty tough, hard decisions to make in the next few months on a personal level, because as life goes back into its grind, you're going to have to say no to some of those things if you're going to protect some of the things that God taught you and shown you in this season. And so I would encourage you, that's going to affect your economics. It's going to affect your I mean, there's so many things it's going to affect. And so the question is, how we go into our future, how we step into this next season is really crucial and important. And I've been talking to a lot of my friends all over the world, but in particular, some of them, it's interesting, a lot of them have actually been encouraging themselves and my conversations with them that make sure you grieve what was lost. I thought that's really interesting. I don't know if I'm not in a grieving posture at the moment, but I think I might start to feel like, well, I'm sad we don't get to do this anymore or that anymore. But at the same time, it's all for the purpose of processing, but it's also for the purpose of stepping into what God has for us. And so I think if we can just understand that to go into the next season, be willing to fight to protect the things that God taught us in this season. And I think for some of us, it's going to be costly, and others of us, it's a really small decision. But I just would want to encourage you guys, make a decision today. What are the things that God showed us or taught us in this season that are non-negotiable in the next season? The one thing I hear from across the planet is the amount of time we spend with friends and family, specifically family because of the shutdown reasons. And some are like, man, when life picks back up, there's gonna be a tension between protecting that or not, etc. So anyway, I just think those are some good things to think through as we exit this season and enter into the next season. So anyway, those are my thoughts.
Yeah, it's been really highlighted to me just how powerful and impactful the just human connection is. And we've been on Zooms all day, and we've been in a lot of different groups and places of connection. But we've done a couple things just to reach out for personal connection. We decided to call all of our church during this time, and it has been crazy, the testimonies and stories that have come from that. And even I've called a few people, and they're like, why are you calling me, first of all? And then just checking in, asking them questions. Is there anything we can do to pray? Is there anything I can pray for you for? And it has been so impacting both ways to see how much life there is in the actual exchange and the connection. We also decided to celebrate each of our graduating high school seniors by going to their houses, and we have signs for them and balloons and gifts for them. And our youth pastor, Rory, was saying, Candace, it is crazy. Like, they are so surprised. Like, what are you doing here? He goes, even though they knew we were coming by and we texted them, he goes, I cannot believe how impacting it is when we just reach out. And we all have the opportunity to do that. And I'm just like, gosh, Lord, am I stewarding that well? Like, how powerful we all are in each other's lives. And us saying one thing and posting something online is one level of influence, but how powerful it is when we actually reach out and we talk to a specific person, or we encourage them or pray for them. I just feel like, oh, I don't want to ever lose that or forget that, specifically when we're leading a large organization or a large team, that we are so powerful. And I think that how impacting the personal connection is. So I feel like there's something God's teaching us and highlighting that in this season as well.
Yeah, that's absolute gold. I can't speak for anyone else. I'm guessing similar people are at a similar place, but that, I know for me, speaks directly to my heart and what I'm going through, both of those things. I see a lot of people shaking their heads. Yes. I had an intercessor team. We were doing some prayer, and one person said, you know, with what you said, Eric, they said, I feel like God's telling me, don't waste a good death. Let those things die in your life. And it's like, okay, that's painful. That sucks. But yeah, he's doing something new. And then reaching out to people, that's absolutely gold. So I know we want to honor your time. On behalf of the Canadian alumni, just thank you guys so much for taking time to meet with us. And this was, this was hugely valuable and impactful. And yeah, just thank you. Thank you for your leadership and everything you do.
Yeah, bless you guys. It's so good to see you.
Yeah, we just pray just that you would have so much grace right where you're at and what God has. And that I pray that he would also give you clarity, that you'd have eyes to see him, ears to hear him, and just that he would also give you the wisdom to steward everything that he's put before you. And I just pray also that you would just have crazy favor with him and favor with the people that you're around. And you'd have so much clarity. You'd know exactly where the doors are that he is opening for you. And he would confirm with his peace so that you would walk through them. And we bless you. We bless who God is inside of you. And we bless Canada in Jesus' mighty name.
And now get in the car and drive 8 hours to see something. Yes.
Amen. Thank you. Thank you so much, guys. Thanks, Eric and Candace.